Hello, thanks for loading up this video. I'm Shane Bennett, chatting with Greg Livingstone, the founder of Frontiers, amazing hero for me, and I'm just thrilled to be able to chat with him. Greg, I wanted to talk to you today about what ended up being a pretty huge event in my life that you were instrumental in. I grew up in Indiana, not hardly a thought about the whole rest of the world. And my senior year in college, I got recruited to join an organization called Caleb Project to go and do cultural research among world-class cities all over the place. And I got recruited to Caleb Project because Caleb Project was begun by a guy who you had invited and facilitated going and serving in Libya, of all places. And so I think that may be at the earliest point where your life had impact on mine. I would love for you to share that story of finding those four guys, sending them to Libya, which, at that point was no Americans went to Libya.
After 1972, when I recruited four OMers to go into Libya and distribute the Gospel of Luke, they got arrested and sentenced to 8 years in prison. So after that, it was pretty hard to get anybody to go to Libya, as you can imagine.
That. Yeah.
And I told this story at Penn State University and said, is there anybody here who would dare to break the barrier there? And Greg Fritz, Bob Sjogren, Harry Gray, I think his name was, and Al Stahl, they came forward at the end of the meeting and said, "We'll go." And I said, "Really?" And so I said, "We better have breakfast and make a plan." So the next morning we decided I'd send them to England, where Libya was advertising English teaching jobs. But when they got there, they found out that the guy that was hiring had left. So I said, "Okay, go to Malta and see what you can do. There's probably Libyans there." They did. They made a friend who had influence at the embassy, who recommended them to colleges in Libya that needed English teachers. Of course, none of them had any experience in teaching English or any training. They flew together there. They were all single. And the superintendent of the university said, "I'm sorry, I have no place for you to live. Would you mind living in the men's dorm with the Libyan students?" And they said, "Okay," which gave them wonderful opportunities day after day to speak of the Lord Jesus Christ. I'd like to report that lots of people came to the Lord, but the biggest thing that came out of that was that by prayer and perseverance, we can get into any place among any people. All four went on to start things themselves, which have produced lovely ministries. I'm very proud of that.
It had really incalculable impact on my life. How did their time in Libya come to a close?
Well, they'd only committed for a year. None of them felt called to be long-termers in Libya, or even when they launched anywhere. Sjogren came back and he came into my office at North Africa Mission in Philadelphia and said, "God's told me that we should recruit 100,000 missionaries."
Whoa.
And I said, "Whoa." I said, "Sit down, Bob." And I was about to have a board meeting with the business people on the board of North Africa Mission, a 100-year-old British mission. I was going to put out a goal of 200 new missionaries, but Bob said, "I think we need 3,000. I said, "Bob, I don't think I can present that." And he said, "What's the matter? What is your faith?" Anyway, I took him with me to the board meeting, and I said to the board, "How would you think about if we had a goal of," and I hesitated, 700 new missionaries. And they said, 700? The whole mission was only a couple of hundred. We had recruited 95 by that time.
Wow.
Anyway, that was my demise. They figured I had fallen on my head. And not long after that, without any animosity, the leaders said, "Greg, we think you should stop sending people because we're full." And I said, "Full? I mean, look at how many places don't have workers." And they said, "Maybe so, but we have a way of training and so forth. We can't take any more." Which is why when I moved out to the U.S. Center for World Mission in Pasadena, walking on the beach, the Lord gave me the vision to start Frontiers.
Wow. If you were standing in front of a group of students like you did at Penn State, let's just imagine 300, 400, 500 18 to 30-year-olds, what would be the place or the people, or maybe 2 or 3 places or people groups that you would be inviting people to that would be roughly parallel to, hey, why don't you go to Libya? Last time I asked people to go, they got arrested for 8 months.
It depends on whether they're ready to go without missionary visas and find a way in, which a lot of people are not. The Caucasus of southern Russia, 45 people groups that maybe there's one little house church or two
Wow.
in one of the Caucasus. That's a huge challenge. Eritrea, we don't know anybody who's working among the 50% of their population that are Muslim. Pathans who are come out of Afghanistan into Karachi, 9 million of them. Wonderfully open opportunity to see something happen among them. Libya, I mean, it's wonderful that we got 23 people in Libya now. 23 people for I don't know how many million is probably not enough. So that's still a challenge. And then it's only been a few weeks ago that we were able to put some people into Baghdad. Last year, I went to Baghdad with Bob Blinko, and we realized there was 2 single ladies teaching at an English school. That was a total missionary force for 10 million Shiites. And we met with the pastors, and they, good people, wonderful people, said, we just can't visualize trying to talk to the Shiites. We'd just get closed down and jailed. Baghdad and the whole south of Iraq is a great challenge.
That's a pretty good sweep if you think that Caucasus, Baghdad, southern Iraq, Eritrea, out to Karachi. If you're watching this video and you're going, what is God's will for my life? You could do worse than just laying those 4 parts of the world before God and saying, what do you think, Father? And I'll tell you this, if you begin to feel some nudge from God, I would be happy to talk with you. Frontiers, the organization that Greg started, they're sending people to those places. So it's doable. It's possible. Neither Greg nor I are going, hey, right now, come with us to Karachi, because we don't have a trip planned there right now. But if God is nudging you, man, find the steps. And I'm happy to talk to you and think about how that might happen. So Greg, thank you so much for sharing that stuff. I'm super encouraged by it and just consider it a great honor and value to be able to hear you share some of those stories, and think your ministry continues on. It continues on in my life and so many others. So thanks so much for this time, and we'll be back soon with the next episode.